I am thrilled for the third year in a row that I get to introduce Senator Van Hollen. As a Montgomery County, Maryland resident, I have been represented by Senator Van Hollen in our state legislature as a congressman and now as a senator. We're so proud to have him as our representative. Senator Van Hollen is a steadfast champion for workers and families, equal rights, equal justice, and equal opportunity. He's fought for creating more jobs, better jobs, strengthening small businesses, increasing educational and job training opportunities for individuals of all ages and in every community. He's released a comprehensive plan to address the problem of growing inequality in America and provided a blueprint for building an economy that works for everybody. That's just a little part of what makes him great, but we in the employee ownership world appreciate that he shows up for us all the time, every time. Thank you, Senator Van Hollen, for being with us. We're so excited you're here.
Well, it's great to be here. Thank you, Maureen, for that generous introduction. Most importantly, thank you for all the work that you do on employee ownership. And it's great to be with all of you today. You know, people ask me, how you doing today or this day? And that question's gotten a lot harder to answer in many ways because it is just one thing after another. It's like whiplash around here. But I am steadily focused, as all of you are, with everything going on in the world, still with this important effort to really encourage, promote, and dramatically expand employee-owned businesses. So thank all of you for being part of this mission. It's great to be here with Blake Moore. I want to thank him for his leadership in the House side. I understand he had some fighting words about basketball. Next year, no. So in addition to Maureen and the Aspen Institute, I also want to thank some of the other sponsors who are here, the Rutgers Institute for the Study of Employee Ownership and Profit Sharing, and within the Aspen Institute Economic Opportunities Program. Thank all of you for sponsoring this. To Jack Moriarty, who I saw on the way in, I want to thank him and the Ownership America team who's been focused on this mission for some time as well. Jim Bonham, I don't know if he is here, but I want to thank him and his team over at ESOP, the ESOP Association. You know, we all use this catchphrase, we need to build an economy that works for everybody, and that's true. That needs to be the guiding principle, but it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to try to take actions to actually do it. And the reason I'm such a big believer in employee ownership is because I think that's an opportunity to match that rhetoric with action going forward. I want to speak for a moment about a dear friend for those of us in the Montgomery County, Maryland community who just passed away. I don't know if any of you know Jack Fitzgerald, so if you probably don't, but if you live in this area and you want to buy a car, he was the owner of a big car dealership, and he would do these advertisings called the Fitz Way. And I mention him because he just passed away, but the reason his story is so relevant to our conversation today is he was determined to turn his business, a very successful and quite large car dealership business, over to his employees. And he spent much of the last sort of 15 years of his life working toward that goal. And he did it for the reasons all of you gather here, because number one, he wanted to make sure that when he passed away, his employees would continue to have good paying jobs, wanted job security. He also knew that if he turned over the company to them, that when they retire, they would have about 3 times the assets of non-employee owners who work. And he understood that spirit, he tried to make sure he operated Fitzgerald Auto dealership in a sort of spirit of unity and camaraderie, but he also understood that by doing that, by making it employee-owned, you would be able to really match the incentives with the intent. And he succeeded. Here's what he said, and he was quite open about this, and we worked with him. He said, "I want to ensure that our employees keep their jobs long after I'm gone, and that the Fitz Way philosophy continues well into the future. So he passed away within the last week, and he was successful. And that is a big part of his legacy going forward. But his efforts to achieve employee ownership also are one of the reasons that we got to pass this bill, because he was determined to do it. And he faced a lot of obstacles in trying to get there. There was a lot of red tape that he had to navigate himself through. He also, of course, he was fortunate to be in a position where he didn't have to get the total amount of the value of the company right away. In other words, accessing the capital wasn't a huge challenge for him, but he really had to work hard at it. And one of the goals we have is to make sure that it's not so difficult to achieve it, so that more businesses do it. Because if you look at the 2024 data in my state of Maryland, we're home to 99 ESOPs with just over 27,000 plan participants, right? That's in a state of 8 million people and millions of workers. So we have a lot of work to do. And our goal here is to make sure that we do it. And Jack Fitzgerald is sort of an example in another way, which is the silver tsunami, right? We have these 2.9 million small business owners who are rapidly approaching retirement age. In Jack's case, obviously at the end of his years. And they employ collectively, all those small businesses, about 32 million people. And so we want to make sure that those small business opportunity men and women, that they have an incentive and are encouraged to do what Jack Fitzgerald did without having to jump through all those hoops and red tape. And we also want to make sure that those businesses are not just a private equity firm with no connection to the community, doesn't swoop down and eat them up. And in many cases, foreign capital, where there's just no local attachment to the community from the purchasers. And so that is why we've introduced this legislation in the past. We've been working with many of you in the room to revise it, to fine-tune it going forward. As you know, it's in the House, been introduced in the House and in the Senate. In the Senate, I'm working with Senator Moran, as well as Senator Young, Todd Young. So will be a bipartisan bill in the Senate. We expect to introduce it very, very soon. We're about to head into a little break, but when we get back, we want to introduce it. You'll be hearing from Cassie Brzezinski, who's on my team. Cassie, when's our target date? Do you know?
April 29th.
There you go. So with your help, we will introduce it on that date, and then build a lot of momentum to get it done. As you know, and I mentioned one of the barriers being the capital, right? Because in many cases it takes 5 to 10 years to recoup the funds when the owner decides to transfer ownership to all his or her employees. And some people can do that, some people can't, right? Some people right now just want to make sure that they can recover 100% right away. And that's not feasible in so many cases. So that's why this bill is important, because it's a bill that will provide some capital through a guarantee program. There's no subsidy in this, but there are some important guarantees written in. Originally, when we introduced the bill, it went through a Small Business Administration program. After a lot of consultation with many of you in the room and with my colleagues, we're now working it through the Commerce Department, so we'll be working with the Commerce Committee. But I do think, and I think you can see from the bipartisan sponsorship, that this is one of those things that does bring people together. And I'm very hopeful that with your help, and it will require all your help, we can get this over the finish line in one form or another, because at a time when we're so polarized as a country in terms of so many other issues, maybe, again, this is something that people can rally behind and make good on. And I'll close where I started. Again, we all talk about an economy that works for everybody. This is a tangible, clear mechanism that allows people to do that because people become owners in their own enterprises that they're working toward. And I don't need to go through the whole litany of benefits with this group, but I think there are many. In addition to being able to retire with greater ownership, with greater equity, there have been many studies that show in the government contracting space how employee-owned enterprises are more cost-effective and a better deal for the taxpayer. So we know the benefits. Now we just got to do the politics. Thank you all for being part of this mission to finally make sure that we move forward on what we all say we want to do, which is create an economy that works better for all of us. So thank you very much.